Hey, take a read of the content advisories real quick, just so you know what you're getting into. These warnings may not apply to you, or they may, I don't know, but just keep them in mind. Throughout your time playing Roblox, you may have noticed that certain games establish a bit of a vibe given the colors used. The literary reason is that one can convey such a vibe through these colors, and the literal reason is that part coloring has come a long way. But wait. What are parts? Well, see, most games on Roblox consist of physical parts you interact with. The regular base plate is a part, most environments you've been in consist of parts. Well, everyone's familiar with them to some degree. These parts have attributes referred to as properties, though we'll focus on one out of all of them, BrickColor. Okay, parts do have a color 3 property where you can just input like RGB values, but we're focusing on the older BrickColor property, the focus of today's video. This part property has been present in the Roblox engine for a very long time, being implemented in January of 2006 according to the Roblox wiki. BrickColors are actually indices. They point to a specific color defined in a palette of currently 208 colors, though this palette used to be a lot smaller. To figure out how we got here, we need to discuss the humble BrickColors history. The history of BrickColors is a pretty short one though, but it does shed some light on the limitations that players from back then were working with, especially in regards to building. Now without further ado, let's begin. While I couldn't find an exact date on the creation of BrickColors, the earliest I found so far was in a very old blog post from 2006. Common consensus is that BrickColors were made in 2006 anyway, so we'll just leave it at that. Regardless, what are these colors that they initially provided and why were they specifically selected? They do look a bit random, especially given that there's only 32. Well, the source of the colors selected is a bit ambiguous, though one pattern demonstrates that the names come from Lego colors. Colors that were used in like Lego sets or something. For example, one Roblox Apollos article mentions that BrickColors got their names from Lego colors. And a Reddit user discovered that a significant chunk of colors matched the ones listed on a color list of parts on Piron, a Lego affiliated website dealing with listing parts in official Lego sets. These 32 colors served as the only way to color parts, not counting decals or t-shirts. Or did they? When BrickColors were released, tons of other BrickColors were released alongside them, totaling 112. But they remained unused, and older users could effectively only use 32 for a time. These rejected colors were quite dull though, and the only information I could find on why they were removed is from a Redditor saying that it was too confusing for new players. These 112 BrickColors were what players had to work with before a later mini update in 2009 released 32 additional BrickColors to the public. On April 2nd, 2009, Jetletsky announced on the Roblox blog that 32 additional colors were added to the BrickColor property. These colors are much more vibrant and seem to be completely original save for the CGA brown, which is, fun fact, actually the same exact color as the brown in the real CGA palette. Pretty cool, huh? Since these new colors were released alongside two materials, more potential for creativity existed. This was around the time that the unused BrickColors were discovered to be accessible, leading to player models such as this one, like here, being made so that everyone can make good use of BrickColors. Remember that Color 3 parts weren't live until mid-2017? So models like this were actually used quite often, though tool scripts and eventually plugins would streamline this process, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. However, people started to get real tired of the limited palette. Only 144 colors? Blasphemy. This was actually how it was for a good 6.5 years though, and as you can imagine, the players weren't the happiest. The closest one to get to full RGB support was apparently vertex coloring a brick mesh, though that'd be quite cumbersome to deal with in terms of building and scripting. So as a result, some players chimed in with the idea of full Color 3 support for parts. Some players even thought of solutions that use GUIs, like surface GUIs to darken or lighten a part with like textures or text labels, I guess. However, not everyone was on board with Color 3 support for parts. This specific dev forum thread has people discussing the possible ramifications of adding Color 3 support due to the increased network load. The amount of bits sent would practically be increased by a factor of 3, so I could see the issue. These considerations were instrumental in keeping BrickColors alive for a little bit longer, but later, the palette was modified again. 2015 saw another update that added the final 64 colors to the current list of 208 BrickColors. However, this also marked the beginning of the end for them as well, at least in the spotlight, because by this point, millions of people were starting to make games on Roblox, and a growing dissension brewed in these newer Roblox developers, because they just did not want to be constrained to a new palette. On August 11th, 2015, I think, Roblox made 64 additional colors in the BrickColor palette live. This palette upgrade saw a significant amount of nature-related colors, some of them being named things like Storm Blue or Slime Green, and other similar colors. Regardless, it was clearly evident that it was high time to finally have full flexibility with coloring parts as opposed to being locked with a palette of only 208 colors, rather than having access to 16.7 million colors. Players echoed this sentiment a lot, and it didn't take a genius to know that the BrickColor property wasn't going to be in the spotlight for much longer. And sure enough, a couple years later, in June 2017, many consecutive nails were hammered into the BrickColors coffin because Roblox had finally released Color 3 coloring support for parts. I'd imagine most people were quite happy with the fact that they could use a hell of a lot more colors in their games now, especially now that the new color effects are now possible. And, well, that's it. No, like, that's actually it. Really, despite being a cornerstone of Roblox building for 11 years, BrickColors don't have a lot of history, but I consider it interesting enough to make a whole video about it, even though it's not that long. Any errata would be put in a pinned comment if need be. With that being said, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video. And I will see you guys in the next one, probably, hopefully, maybe.